Welcome to Total Apex Sports. This is the fourth and goal. I'm here with our Eagles and fantasy football beat writers, Brandon and Max. And yeah, we're going to talk about what happened in a crazy week one and the Eagles, of course. But first, I guess in general, other than the Eagles, what were some notable highlights from this week? Max, you can go first.
Yeah, so I'll say that my takeaway for week one was just there wasn't a lot of good offensive play for the most part. I would say I just thought like my big takeaway was the quarterback play wasn't super strong. You could kind of expect
Yeah.
that for the three rookies, but overall as a league, it just wasn't. These guys don't play preseason, and even though they say these
Mhm.
joint practices are more important, these guys just come out so sluggish. Um, Game action is different from
Yeah.
putting them in these situations in practice. So with the less and less these people, these players play in preseason, the more week ones I think we're going to see like this moving forward.
Yeah, like the Jets last night, basically. But Brandon, what was your
Yeah.
takeaway?
So my main takeaway is two young stud quarterbacks. The rookie Jaden Daniels looked pretty good against Tampa Bay and in that tall Bulls system. Even though Washington lost by like multiple scores, Daniels showed that he can run the ball effectively. And the other
Oh
quarterback
yeah,
I would like to highlight is Anthony Richardson from Indy. They also lost
yeah,
by 2 points to Houston. But Anthony Richardson is here for fantasy purposes for
hmm
2024 and beyond.
yeah.
He
That
made he
that
made
throw
an
was
impact.
yeah. I mean, he still had inaccurate issues or inaccuracy issues, but that
Hmm.
that one bomb, like if you can hit that all day, then yeah, they're gonna be a threat for a lot of teams. But yeah, we can get into the week one Brazil game recap. The uh, the Eagles came out with the victory over the Packers, and yeah, I mean they even though it was so ugly, like not it was a very close win, but I would say the system itself looked pretty good, other than something with Jalen Hurts. Yeah, Brandon, you can go ahead.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say when they motioned, Jalen Hurts was the
Hmm.
probably one of the best quarterbacks of the weekend when they used motion and against the blitz. He was by far the best quarterback against the blitz in the weekend. 158.3 passer rating, perfect passer rating against the blitz. It was the other stuff,
Yeah.
the hero ball, especially the one to AJ late that was intended for AJ that Jair picked late. That's the one that we need
Yeah.
to get rid of. If you're an Eagles fan, that's the ball that you don't want him to throw again if you can help it. Now,
Hmm.
Brian Baldinger had the all 22 look and had this perspective. Yes, AJ was open, and I saw that, and he was open on the play. The ball was first. The ball was late. Two, AJ did slip because of that field. That is another issue that
Oh.
I have. Another slippery field within 3 years of the other slippery field that the Eagles had to play on in Arizona. But it is
Yeah.
just that interception late for Jalen is the one that a lot of people are going to take away from it and be like, oh, Jalen Hurts is not Jalen Hurts. But when you look at the motion, the schematic of the motion, the use of Saquon Barkley, the use of the A.J. Brown touchdown, where he looked the safety off, then went back to A.J., like he looks to safety middle, keeps the middle, then throws the bomb to AJ. That's the Jalen Hurts that we want to see going forward. Those things, not the hero ball over in the middle when you could have been up 8. And the fact that Jordan Love didn't
Yeah.
look that great either in Brazil. He really didn't before he got hurt. Prayers up to
Hmm.
him. I think this is only an MCL sprain, not an MCL tear.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
he didn't look that great in that game either. So that's what my main takeaway from Hurts' performance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can echo that
Max, you
on.
can follow.
I think the thing that popped out from like a positive because it's a really tough game to evaluate because of the conditions, the overseas travel. It's a weird one to start the season off, but I do think schematically you can tell that things are much stronger, and I do think it's on both sides of the ball. I know the defense did have its rough moments,
Yeah.
but to be fair, they really saved the game in the first quarter by holding down the 2 turnovers that the Eagles got, and then keeping the Packers in the red zone to only 6 points. That kind of was the game. The fact that Green Bay wasn't up 14-0 and the Eagles were only down 6-0. And as you said, the offense had some really high highs and some very low lows, but for a mixed bag, they scored 34 points, and a lot of those points came with a lot of ease for them.
Yeah.
So it's I think the Eagles are going to feel offensively really strong. Again, defensively, they were still missing Devin White, who didn't play, and Isaiah Rodgers didn't play. And you could feel that defensively, Avonte Maddox, not really good anymore playing the slot, even though Quinyon Mitchell, the first-round pick, had probably their best game in the secondary. They probably would have liked him to play inside with they're just not deep at nickel corner. And then Nakobe Dean is like the most frustrating player to watch because
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, he has moments where you're like, this guy is this is why he was one of the best players in college football for multiple seasons. And then there's moments where he is not good in coverage. He doesn't have, because he's small, his eyes are just not there. He bit a lot of times on play action plays. And Zach Bond, they were blitzing a lot more than him. So he was kind of left in coverage. So defensively, I think when they get those 2 guys back, they'll be a lot better. But my biggest takeaway was schematically, I thought Kellen Moore, the play calling was inventive, made sense, and it didn't seem too complicated. And the defense, a lot more blitzes. The front 4 will get going, but I do think from a schematic perspective, it's so much better than last season.
Yeah, man, they have to clean up these soccer fields and because this is like a consistent thing, like with any international game or like even like the Super Bowl. Like I don't know why they can't. I don't know why the fields are just such in terrible shape. But yeah, I definitely a positive with Zach Bond. That was like a guy that he was basically an edge rusher. And then he basically converted to linebacker, but they still blitzed him from time to time, and he was really good for the Eagles. In terms of that slot motion with that AJ Brown like crossing route, that's like something that that is going to be so difficult to stop if they can fine tune that a little bit. And then obviously the debut of Saquon Barkley, that adds like a whole new element to their offense that they didn't have last year. I guess other than the Jalen Hurts like turnovers, I am concerned. Like I don't know if he's like hurt. I don't think so. It's just he's kind of like running timid, but he's not running like how he was kind of.
I can see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where you're going with that a little bit, but I think Green Bay, that was part of Green Bay's plan, was to take away the read option.
True.
I think that was the main part of Green Bay's defensive plan was to take away his read option for me.
Yeah.
But he did, in the fourth quarter, when the scramble game got going, he did look the athletic 2022, early stages of 23 hurts a little bit to me. Like that, especially the one where it was 2nd and 8. He takes 2 defenders for the first down in that last 2-minute drive. So there is still that Jalen Hurts in there that can carry the defender for 2 or 3 extra yards if he needs to. The read option game in the RPO game is what is the concern point right now that he's got to fix. If it's making the right read. And I think Kellen Moore is going to help him out with that immensely.
Yeah, with the new system. In terms of what is it? In terms of, I guess, getting Devonta Smith involved, I really and even Dallas Goedert. I mean, there were times last year where just AJ Brown, but this game they did a good job of spreading it around. But again, this game was so wild that it's kind of hard to judge where the
Yeah,
pass catchers are coming from. Like they'll eventually get Jahan Dotson involved and the other
yeah.
guy, but
But even to add to your point
mhm.
about Jalen, I just think it's been a thing since he's been in the NFL. I think you're seeing a trend in the NFL, these run first. A lot of quarterbacks who ran the ball a lot in college, just with that type of play, just doesn't trend well in the NFL. And that's like a big. Obviously, we're not the Commanders, but that's definitely a big issue for Jaden Daniels moving forward. Is that he turned to run 10 more than throw the ball, and I think Jalen. When it's late in games and they need him to run the ball, he'll do it. But I think early in
Yeah.
games, first even 3/4 of games, he just doesn't want to risk taking hits. And you can see that he tries to run a lot more laterally than he does, trying to get up the field when he's scrambling out of the pocket. I just think it's a mental thing of he just feels like he has an arm and he doesn't want to take those type of hits. He took a couple late, but that's only, again, he only did that out of necessity late in the game. So I think that's just it's been Jalen's thing since he's come out of college.
And another thing for me,
yeah.
another thing for me with like the offense as a whole,
Yeah.
going on to your point about Devontae and Goddard, I love the use of Devontae Smith in motion and in the slot. I love watching that as a whole, seeing that because it reminded me of his Heisman Trophy year at Alabama, where they used them all around all three positions at wide receiver. And it's going to be good to see because Devontae is going to have that big game this year. I feel like he's going to have an AJ Brown game. He's going to have he's going to be the guy that carries maybe 2 or 3 victories this year, just because they'll focus on the run with Barkley. They'll maybe double AJ and Devontae has to step up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my feeling on that.
How did you guys think of the tush pushing in this game? There was one fumble snap, I think, and the other one they got, but the amount of them, I feel like they're gonna do less.
I think outside of Philly, I think people have been like, I'm not as worried as someone who's watched Cam Jurgens for a really long time. He was a center in college. I think everyone expected that it was going to take time with him and Hurts. They didn't play preseason. I don't feel everyone's true. Like, obviously, everyone just like red flags right away with that. And I get it. It was the first, like that felt like such a first quarter of a week one, the fumble, and then the fourth quarter. It just felt like such a week one thing to happen.
Yeah.
Cam Jurgens is was the best center in college football until he had that major injury towards the end of his Crimson Tide career. It's just something I'm not, as an Eagles fan, I don't think I feel like the national media is more worried about the Eagles center problem than actual like people who follow the team and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Max here. I'm not worried about what happened with the fumble snaps and stuff like that. That's just a week one that they're not in tune with each other kind of thing. And I think Cam Jurgens did have a couple key blocks in the game as well. Yeah. He had a couple nice key blocks, spreading Barkley off, like the 11-yard touchdown that Barkley had. That was a Cam Jurgens block that sprung him. So I think for me, Cam Jurgens played good enough football in that game to mitigate the 2 snap issues. Now, the one fumble at the red zone was a Hurts kind of fumbled the snap a little bit. Exchange. But the aborted snap probably was on Jurgens more than Hurts. So that's just where I would feel on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is interesting. I guess for fantasy purposes, like I knew that the presence of Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in the same backfield would definitely like increase Barkley's touchdown efficiency. But then again, I guess in this game specifically, it was more of like he took Saquon took the touchdown from Hurts that what Hurts normally does, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially early on in the season. But yeah, I mean, were you guys like expecting this type of performance from Saquon? I mean, like he literally went off. I mean, for fantasy and statistically, I mean.
Yeah, it was fascinating to watch. Like I was expecting stuff, but it is like you kind of get like the Eagles have really struggled. Even though people think they've had a really good back, so you can I mean, this is one of the best offensive lines, and they've just really haven't had those like a special back in this backfield in like over 10 years, in my opinion. So the fact that you saw Saquon Barkley, you feel like his eyes just lit up and kind of both he expected to have the running lanes he had, but he was also just he probably wasn't used to seeing that after playing for the Giants. And you can kind of see him just, wow, these are some pretty huge holes. I'm just gonna burst through it.
Yeah.
I think even the surprising thing is I think for fantasy people and I think for the Eagles in general, he's going to catch the ball a lot more than he did on Friday. He had 2 catches. Obviously, he had the very nice touchdown. But I think they're going to use him a lot more receiving than there's 24 carries and 2 catches. I think receiving wise, he'll be a bigger factor. But with this offensive line, they're not really going to game plan for him as much as they will for the Giants. They're too good on the outside to just focus on Saquon.
Yeah.
So this, and again, unlike many other teams that got new running backs, the Eagles really featured their new acquisition. 26 touches is a lot for him. And I'm not sure it's going to be that much every week, but I do think expect 20 to 25 touches a week for him moving forward.
Yeah, I think that second part of the game, they were kind of like trying to, mitigate from like the earlier mistakes and then trying to use him more. But yeah, he was lined up out wide as he should. And yeah, I guess normally like running quarterbacks don't normally pass to the running back a lot, but this is a different case because just because of the running back's so talented, like why wouldn't he be a future weapon in that offense?
For me, I think Barkley is going to be used, like Max was saying, a lot more in the passing game. And it's like, so what Caleb Williams should have done more with with DeAndre Swift. I think that's what the Eagles will do with Barkley a lot more than what Chicago did in week 1 is using the running backs. Now, and Daniels checked down a lot too to Eckler and Ertz and all that in the Tampa game.
Yeah.
I think Hurts will get back into like, I have this elite running back that can catch out of the backfield. They can go for 10, 15 extra yards after he catches the ball. Let me dump it down here instead of like having to scramble, make a play with my own feet. So that's what I love. And then Saquon's performance for me was chef's kiss, what I expected because of the one run late where he starts right, comes back left, bursts through the hole, goes for like 30 extra yards, gets tackled. I'm like, that's what we wanted for Saquon Barkley. That's what a lot of people expected from Saquon Barkley coming out of Penn State was that same change of direction, going through the hole. But the Giants just could not build the offensive line enough those years to have that. And now Philly, he comes to Philly in the first game, you see it. 3 touchdowns in the first game. Two nice rushing touchdowns. For me, I think Barkley is going to be probably the offensive player of the year. That's just a bold statement I have right now, but I think he's going to be the offensive player of the year.
Yeah, at the pace he's going, like he's definitely he's definitely like the perfect like balance between like the receiving work and like the yards on the ground for sure. Yeah, we can go to the previewing their game against Atlanta on Monday night. I mean, I think the Eagles should get this one at home. It shouldn't be. I mean the one concern I guess that they built up stock with this pass rush, but again it could have been like the Packers have a pretty good offensive line, but yeah, they're gonna have to come home a little bit sooner. Not including like Zach Bond, just because that was more of like he was blitzing, just like the front 4.
Yeah. For me, Monday night, if Isaiah Rodgers does come back, I would put Rodgers in the slot. I would not move Quinyon. That's just where I come from with it because Quinyon looked so good on the outside. I don't want him to have to go. All right, I have to revert back to my slot training that I had in training camp when I just played an excellent game on the outside against Chris. Now, granted, Packers receivers aren't the best in the world, but I'm just saying with covering Packers number 1 receiver Christian Watson that first drive, covering several people. He did give up that one play late, one of the plays late, though he was looking in the backfield. But that's just one play. I feel like Quinyon is more of an outside guy than an inside guy, and I think Rodgers' skill set can lead to being an inside guy more. Even though Rodgers was also an outside guy in Indy too, so I'm interested to see what they do if Rodgers comes back. But for me, for Monday night, I think Philly wins, especially if the defensive line plays like the Steelers' defensive line. Especially if they play like Highsmith and Watt on the edges. I just don't see Atlanta protecting against Huff, against Graham, against Nolan Smith, against Sweat. I just don't see their tackles holding up, and I just need Jalen Carter to get in there and get a sack. That's probably then. I think the Eagles have better D tackles than the Steelers too. So I think if the defensive line can create havoc on Monday night, there's no contest because Atlanta can't stop Philly's offense.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with you there. I do think the defensive line was definitely tough to. Again, that's like the one position I had a hard time evaluating in Brazil. It's got to be an uncomfortable feeling when your job's trying to run at the quarterback and you don't know if you're going to be slipping and sliding as you're trying to do that. So I don't know how if that was like a fair evaluation to look at them on Friday. The thing I would be nervous about, but I really won't be now, is Atlanta. Bijan would be a dangerous running back for the Eagles to face just due to the Eagles linebackers not being known for coverage.
Yeah.
But we've seen in the 2 years he's been in Atlanta, they don't really feature Bijan as much as they should be doing in the first place. So unless they, have a, change that on Monday night, because I think Bijan out of the backfield is like the secret sauce for Atlanta staying in the game. But as you said, I mean, I just think the Eagles, and I think if you watch that Steelers game too, a lot of their times they got into field goal range were just deep ball passes to George Pickens. And I think the Eagles, Jalen Hurts' best ball is honestly that beautiful deep ball. And the Eagles showed on Friday night they can get the ball down the field like that. So I think the big play is going to be open for the Birds on Monday. This is definitely a really good matchup. Kirk Cousins usually struggles in Philadelphia, especially on the last 2 years they played on Thursday night last year, Monday night the year before in week 2. The Eagles had no problem with the Vikings those 2 years. And I just feel like this is just a thing in his head of playing a primetime game in Philadelphia. It has not worked out. So I feel like the Eagles should feel very confident heading to this home opener.
Another thing for me is too, I don't think the Eagles want to lose on Nick Foles' retirement jersey night. I just don't think that it's in their mindset.
Home opener.
And the home opener, retiring Nick Foles' jersey that big night, I just don't think. And Kelsey's going to be there for countdown, so we already know like he's going to the emotion of Jason Kelsey coming back to Philly for the first time since he retired. Well, he's been there, but I'm just saying in a live presence. And another thing for me too, I felt like if Nakobe Dean catches that pick 6, I feel like we'd be talking about Nakobe Dean's game a little bit different, just a tad. I know he was not great in coverage, but Nakobe Dean made some plays in the run game, which, granted, that's where he's strong at. I think he's a better run defender than a pass defender, like we are all saying. But I think for me, Nakobe Dean, if he catches that pick 6, I feel like he was probably one of the best players. Him and Bonner were probably the best duo linebackers I've seen in Philly in a long, long time since Kazir and Edwards. And if we can keep up that play from the Brazil game linebacker wise, I just don't think Atlanta has enough. Now another thing too for me is Pitts. If they use Pitts better. If they find a way to use Pitts better, that's another concern I have, more so than Bijan, because for me, the tight end game has been one of the weakest points for so long. And I like the
Eagles.
Like the tight end coverage game, it's been so weak. Now, we did have the Reed Blankenship interception. Bond made a nice coverage play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is a tick in that direction, but Pitts is a more dynamic tight end than Musgrave, in my opinion. So
Yeah, and too, I think the Eagles get 10 days off. It's a short week for Atlanta. It's a weird like the Falcons played one of the most physical defenses they'll see all year, plus a short week, while the Eagles, fly back, get basically a mini bye week
Yeah,
to get fresh and healthy again. So from that perspective, the Eagles should come out much fresher than Atlanta as well.
100%.
Yeah. I guess this kind of is spelling doom for Atlanta already, but they're already calling for Michael Penix. I mean, it's only week 2. I'm kind of surprised it's taking this early, but they did set up for this because they did draft him. So
Yeah.
For me, I think if Cousins is not healthy, then you probably should start Penix. But at the same time, why start Penix in a hostile environment like Philadelphia?
Yeah.
I
right,
wouldn't even do it. Don't start. If you're a Falcons fan and wanting Penix, you're out of your mind right now because it's you just. I know they did this to themselves, the organization, but at the same time, for me, you don't want the kid going into Philadelphia playing his first NFL game
yeah,
in
that's
Philly.
true.
Yeah,
That's
you don't.
where
That would
I'm
be
at
a
with it.
tough spot.
You don't. But yeah, Kirk didn't look healthy, but at the same time, as you said, you're just throwing a quarterback who also you weren't even playing a lot in preseason. I don't think he has enough reps to just throw him out there for a big game like that. It would take like 4 or 5 weeks, I think. If they're like 0-4, 0-5, maybe you hit the panic button. But they're paying this guy too much money to flip the switch in week 1 after week 1.
I mean, 0-4, 0-5 might be possible for this Atlanta team because after Philly, they got Kansas City.
Yeah, schedule's rough for them.
That schedule's rough for Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Probably
Pittsburgh,
after that game, they would consider or whenever their bye week is, for sure they would consider that.
yeah, I think for me
Uh,
that Pittsburgh game had to be the game they got because the next two were probably losses on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about just quickly the Thursday night and then the Sunday night games. But yeah, we have the division game this week with the Bills at Dolphins. That's kind of interesting because the Bills, it was expected they were going to beat the Cardinals, um, but I guess in the way they did it with the amount of like different targets and weapons Josh Allen spread around to, and then the Dolphins hanging around against the Jaguars, and because normally they don't win those games. It's usually like a shootout, but they actually held it in a tight game. So who do you have favored for that Thursday nighter?
I do slightly favor Miami just because this is the type of year where they play good, in my opinion. Like this is the type like
Yeah,
some
that's
teams who
true.
won week 1, you're like, of course, this is such a week 1 win. Some of these teams just play better. Miami is a vintage team that plays good in the warm weather early in the season compared to cold weather December, January. So I think this is where Miami kind of had obviously it's a weird circumstance of the stuff before the game and
Yeah,
then
Yeah,
the mess of the game itself. So I think finally they have time to finally have a full week of half week of actual preparing. Hopefully nothing weird happens before the game. But as I said, Miami's just too deep. I think Buffalo, Arizona, while they're a very difficult team, this is a much deeper Miami team, both sides of the ball. But I still like Buffalo more than I think Keon Coleman's really going to work out for them. He was one of my favorite wide receivers to watch in college last year.
yeah.
And James Cook should be getting more touches than he did last week. But I just like the high octane offense. I like Miami just because they're home, honestly.
Right now, for me,
yeah.
I favor Buffalo. Now
Okay.
that could change depending on because I'm iffy on the Achan's health and
Mm-hmm.
Mostert's health, and I'm iffy on Jalen Wright. For me, but that's the thing. For me, it is in Miami. Miami should have the advantage. I just think Buffalo is healthier going into this game after week 1. And for me, the healthier team, a lot of times in these short week games like this, they normally come out on top. So for me, I think Buffalo will get the nod in Miami this time around. But I do think they split. So I
Yeah,
think they split
that's
this.
true.
But I was thinking
Yeah.
it was going to be home and home, but I just don't think it's going to happen. If Achane or Mostert can't play, I just don't know how, because they'll take away Tyreek. So we'll
Yeah.
see what. I
That
mean,
if those two running backs don't go, it's going to be Jeff Wilson, and then I mean we'll see with Jalen Wright. He was at a healthy scratch for this week. But yeah, for the Sunday night we have the Bears at Texans. That is a game I'm interested in just because like I'm just hoping the Bears offense shows something a little bit because they just did not against the Titans.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all in on Houston this season. So
Yeah.
this is, I mean, I know it was a sloppy week 1 game, but that's a very important road division game early in the season. I mean, the Colts clearly I think are going to be the team that challenged them in the South. So to get that road win, no matter how ugly that game got, it was really important for them. But you did see kind of, even Tank Dell didn't really do much, but you really did see the main new additions really pop with Mixon and Diggs offensively.
yeah.
For
And
fantasy.
Danielle Hunter's going to get going. That was another just under the radar. People don't realize how impactful he was for the Vikings for a long time. I just think Houston. It's also, I think, a coaching just mismatch in this game. I just think schematically and coaching wise, I think Houston just has such a big. It's not that Chicago can't match them talent wise offensively. It's just I just think coaching wise, I think Houston just also has a major advantage in this Sunday night game.
For me, that's probably the game of the weekend for me. I love both quarterbacks. The matchup at quarterback is great. Both young defenses are really good. That's the thing. They beat me in our fantasy league this week. The Bears defense turning it up. But I had them in one of my friends, one of our leagues. So one of my other leagues, I had them. So it was like, a couple of my other leagues, I had them. So I knew the Bears defense could turn it up. And that's the thing. I don't think if they're down 17-0, the Bears again, I don't think obviously they won't win against Houston because Houston knows how to play with a lead. Tennessee don't know how to play with a lead, and it showed. But for me, I think Houston wins. This is probably a 4 or 5 point game for me. I think Caleb is going to show something this week. I think they're going to make the adjustments they need to. Now, it does depend on Odunze's health because I think going in, I think he's questionable with a knee. I think if they don't have Odunze, he's day to day. So if he should be able to play, but if he doesn't play like 100%, then it's Houston all day. But for me, I think it's going to be a close ball game. NBC's got a good slate of games already to start the year. I feel like with the Lions Rams overtime, and then this one. Also like the Chiefs Ravens. That game was a good game down to the wire.
I don't know if I want to get into that one, but
down by a toe.
I mean, as long as they can just take care of business against the Raiders at home, that's fine.
Y'all should take care of Oakland. Go to Vegas. Vegas should. I don't think that's the thing with me. Vegas was in that game against the Chargers, and it showed, but they didn't go for it on 4th and 1, and it showed when you don't go for it on 4th and 1, it shows you're not going to get the ball back a lot of the time.
Yep.
So I feel like, but that's the thing too. I feel like the Chargers offense is a lot different than the Ravens offense, and I feel like for me, Lamar, they can't defend. I don't think Vegas can defend the mobile quarterback right now. So that's just where I'm at with that game.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Speaking of like the AFC North, I mean, I guess the Bengals can fit into this because they normally start slow, but that was probably the upset of the week with the Patriots beating them. I mean, I guess without Higgins, that line should have flipped a little bit, but I mean, I'm just shocked that the Chase thing hasn't resolved yet. Like I figured, like the Dak Prescott contract did, like right before the game, they gave them a huge extension, but yeah, the
And that's
Bengals might
that's
get slaughtered by the Chiefs this week.
yeah, that's the thing with the Cincy. Cincy, I wrote the quarterback start sits before this, and sitting and sitting is Burrow for me, and he's my fade of the week just because of how they looked against New
Yeah,
England, and I just don't think that's going to improve that much against Kansas City. So I mean, it's the thing. He's both a sit and my like in the major fade of the week because like you can't really like if you judge a lot because that's the thing. He probably had one of the most pedestrian stat lines, like only 164 yards passing, and that's not what you expect from Joe Burrow at all. Because
yeah,
like and
yeah,
for
I
me,
watched like a little bit of that game, but
yeah,
was he hurt still, or was it just like the
well,
line was just getting?
that I think for me, I think for what I saw was I don't like a lot of people are saying his wrist is still bothering him, but at the same time,
Oh,
it's
okay.
the line was also not good for Cincinnati, and
Yep.
the scheme wasn't good for Cincinnati either.
Yeah, and they lost Mixon. They had no run game, and Chase was even on a pitch count, so he wasn't on the field like he was. But again, that game changes if Gesicki makes that catch and the tight end doesn't fumble the
Yeah,
ball at the 1 yard line. So that was
yeah,
such an
that's
awful
crazy turn of
back-to-back
events.
sequence. Yeah, because that Gesicki, that the ball to Gesicki was unbelievable. It was such a great throw. Should have caught it, and then obviously the tight end thought he was in, and then he fumbled. I just that was a weird situation, but I'm the biggest Joe Burrow supporter, so I again it's a weird start. I don't like the matchup this week, but I don't think that should make people feel too nervous about them. But I'm right. What are they gonna do? Wait to franchise tag Jamar at the end of the year? It was just such a weird. That should be done by now. And it seems like there's a lot of drama. He's calling out Taylor in the press conferences every game.
Oh yeah, that
Something,
was
yeah.
Yeah,
So that on my end, there's something just weird going on.
another thing too. Is the Deshaun situation is crazy too
Yeah.
because that Cleveland game was not a good game to watch. Um, and then
no,
props
it
to
was
Dallas are coming in there.
tragic with that.
Props to Dallas are coming in there and doing their thing.
Mhm.
I hate propping Dallas in anything, but
It's not good to do.
give Dallas their props. They came in, took care of business, even though Dak Prescott didn't have the Dak Prescott game like I thought. Like I thought he like I predicted last week. He didn't have he had one touchdown, but it was mostly the run game, the defense,
Mhm.
special teams, and Brandon Aubrey. That was mostly what the Dallas game
Yeah,
was. But yeah, for me, the Cincinnati Bengals are in trouble if they don't win, and they're not going to win this week. But they're in trouble once again, even though they've started 0-2, 0-1-3 these last couple. This year is different. If they start that same way, again, it's not. They're not going to make the playoffs. That's just where I'm at with it. I think if Cleveland can get it right, they're too good. I think Pittsburgh's underrated now, as we've seen with Atlanta, like the Atlanta game. Pittsburgh's underrated, and then Baltimore is Baltimore. So part of me thinks they
right.
could finish last in the division, Cincinnati. So
Yeah, I still think the whole Browns Deshaun Watson thing, as long as he keeps taking the field, like I don't think they're winning anything. Like I
oh
think
Yeah.
yeah,
anytime soon. I mean, but I will give Jerry Jones props because he did pay like basically everyone other than Parsons, but that
yeah,
he can kind of do later, like maybe not this coming off season. But I mean, I will
yeah.
admit, like they showed out. So that NFC East division can be interesting again. But
Yeah.
what we were right kind of with the Giants, they
Yeah, that's
the
unfixable
pitchforks
right
are
there.
out.
Yeah, it's the biggest. I think it's the biggest joke in the league at the moment. I know Carolina's bad, but I do think the Giants, just because they're a major market,
Yeah,
it's a horribly run organization. That and now Dable moving into play caller this year puts his job even on the highest of seats now, just because he's now with the play caller. I really do think they could have a different quarterback, head coach, and even GM next season. I mean, it's all on the
Yeah,
line. Absolutely ugly uniforms too for this
Oh
next
yeah,
group. Just
the
Yeah,
throwbacks.
ugly.
no,
Oh
that was,
goodness,
And Sam
put those in
Darnold,
the locker.
yeah, and Sam Darnold isn't that good, and they made him look very, 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 very good. I mean,
Yeah,
he didn't throw an incompletion until the 2-minute drill in the first half. So, and that's supposed to be their best part of their team is Brian Burns and
yeah,
Thibodeau and
yeah, they
that
were not
defense.
there.
So it's obviously the Saquon. You can always talk about the Saquon thing looming over their head, but in
yeah.
general, it's they chose the quarterback. They obviously had to see him play this season, but I don't think
Mhm.
I just not good. I think this is the biggest joke in the league right now.
And I think for me too, I picked Daniels as my lock on that quarterback start sit. I'm obviously previewing in the article I just wrote. But for me, I picked Daniels as my lock. Just because based on what I saw against Sam Darnold, what's Daniels going to look like next week? Like I think Daniels is going to go off.
Yeah,
Like for at least more passing yards than what he did. And I think also for me, his rushing ability he's probably gonna have another game close to 100 yards rushing again. Like for me, now he does have to throw the ball downfield a
right.
little bit more for my prediction to come true. But I think he will do that against this secondary for the Giants because I just don't think the pass rush is going to get there. It didn't show against the Vikings. I don't think it's going to get
Yeah,
there against this Washington team.
yeah. Apparently, Thibodeau got benched because he got a face mask penalty or something, and then I don't know. There's some weird locker room vibes going on over there. But to end this off, I guess we can talk a little bit about the Jets. I mean, yeah, going back to what you said in the beginning, this is basically their preseason. It's going to take some time
Yeah,
to come together. But the Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall, they look good, and Rodgers too. Um, but yeah, I am shocked
yeah,
though that their defense looks so bad. Like I know
yeah. That
it's
was my
the
takeaway.
Niners,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that was
you
my
can't
takeaway.
get run all over by Jordan Mason.
Jordan
I
Mason.
mean,
No, not Jordan Mason. Yeah,
yeah,
if it was McCaffrey, we would have been like, okay, it's McCaffrey doing McCaffrey. This, no.
yeah,
Man, this was just the line for the Niners just outplaying the Jets defensive line. I mean, it
Yeah,
showed,
yeah.
hey, it might win the argument for Hassan Reddick that why, like, okay, you do need me.
Hmm.
Like, you better give me that
Yeah,
contract
he
before I
should get
arrive.
paid then.
yeah. It's just
Right.
the
I mean,
defense did not stand out in general, and that was the takeaway. I just think this is supposed to be the best part of their team, and when you have a defensive head coach, that kind of just has to pop. Offensively, the problem is that he only threw to really 2 people the whole game. He threw to
Yeah,
Lazard late in the second half, but it was either Garrett Wilson or checking down to
Brees Hall.
Brees. So they are really thin outside of, again, they're 2 really good players, but you are going to need more. You need Conklin to be a factor. He was zilch last night, and
Yeah,
then
he was not good.
Lazard dropping passes left and right. That's my only nervousness with offense. I think Aaron, of course, is going to look rusty, and the offense themselves wasn't. But the nervous thing is that he didn't look like he trusted anyone else outside of 2 people on offense. So
And my main takeaway isn't the Jets because I knew the Jets were going to be sloppy because Rodgers hadn't
mhm.
played, and I just
yeah,
my main takeaway is the Niners. The Niners without McCaffrey still look like San Francisco, even though Ayuk didn't
Yeah,
look the greatest. Even though Purdy had a couple missed throws, I still think San Francisco is probably one of the top teams in the NFC,
yeah,
along with Philly, along with Detroit. Those 3 teams are going to duke it out in January. But for me, I think San Francisco looked like and acted like one of the defending NFC champs in week 1.
yep,
At home, didn't let the McCaffrey situation affect them too much. They just look like a great team. Props to Shanahan, props to John Lynch for finally getting everything right with Ayuk and everything like that. But Ayuk just needs to get back in shape and just execute on those catches. Now, if they execute those red zone plays, it's probably 42-45, probably 50 to
yeah. The game
50 to
would have been
19
even
final.
over.
yeah.
So it's if they executed the plays that I said they missed, San Francisco probably was the best team in week 1. And
Yeah,
as an
like
Eagles fan,
that's even yeah. Like even considering like Debo, like they used him a lot, but he wasn't even that efficient. Like other
no,
than taking away Jordan Mason's other rushing touchdown, but
yeah,
Yeah.
holding. But
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I guess any other what other games are you most excited about heading into this week? Brandon, you can
Well,
start.
I think for me the main one is Dallas New Orleans. I think that's a
Hmm.
sneaky, intriguing game. Both teams coming off huge
Yeah,
Yeah.
blowout wins. To see who comes out on top in that one for me is an interesting ball game. Um, Another one is I don't know. I think that I'm just going to stick with this Dallas and New Orleans for right now. I think that's the main because Derek Carr actually looked decent against. And now I know it was Carolina, but at the same time, I
yeah.
think
We have to see if that's.
Yeah.
Mhm.
see if that can hold up against Dallas's defense.
I actually I like Rams Cardinals this week as a really sleeper game. I actually thought the Rams came out looking better than Detroit to me, even though the Rams lost.
Yeah,
The Rams had three backup offensive linemen, including
yeah,
they had no tackles and Puka Nakua, and they basically, if Stafford makes that throw to Cup, they probably win that game.
yeah,
So I was actually more encouraged by the Rams. So, and
Yeah,
Arizona, while losing to Buffalo, that's a really tough road game. And the fact that they were in that game for the majority of it really didn't lose it on their own. Just Josh Allen became Josh Allen in that
yeah,
second half.
yeah,
I find the Rams really need to win that game. It's a big division game for them. Oh, and no Nakua now for the next month or so.
yeah.
It's an important game for them to win. But the Cardinals Rams I like this week.
yeah. All right, that's gonna do it. Where can they find you guys? Your guys' socials. Max, you can start.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter's at Dinenberg Max with the D and M capitalized. My Instagram is Max Dinenberg, one word. I post all my stories from Total Apex on there. As you said, you did the quarterbacks. My tight end waiver wire and start set are my waiver wire is out, and my tight end start set should be out by the time this recording's out. So definitely check those out. Only 5 tight ends had more than 10 points this week, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have to take a streamer if you want to have an impact in fantasy at the tight end position.
For me, I'm 30 Ellis on Twitter. Ellis Highlight Reel on TikTok. Um, I have an Instagram too, but I just mainly just post personal stuff on there. But for me, high school sports is ramping up. Like I said before last time I was
Mhm.
on here. Fun covering Friday Night Lights like always. So I'm gonna be back on the road this week. I don't know where I'll be at yet, but follow along if you want to follow along for high school sports, high school football, and all that stuff. Um, and I'll also post my Total Apex stories on Twitter. So when I always repost it and stuff like that. So
Yeah, you can follow us on TotalApexSports, fantasy, gaming, entertainment, on Twitter, Instagram, you name it. But yeah, we'll be back on Thursday, covering some more fantasy stuff for this coming week.